The sun was blazing on the busy street when disaster struck. A luxury sports car swerved wildly, sending a young man, the millionaire's only son, straight under a heavy delivery truck. Crowds gasped. Phones came out. People whispered in fear. Yet no one dared to act. Not a single hand moved to help. Seconds felt like hours as the boy's life hung in the balance. Just when hope seemed lost, a poor maid clutching her baby tightly against her chest stepped forward. What happened next would shatter prejudices, rewrite destinies, and prove that true wealth has nothing to do with money. Please take a moment and subscribe the channel, a city where wealth created invisible walls. The divide between the privileged and the struggling was clearer than anywhere else. At the top of that divide lived Victor Harrington, a powerful millionaire known for his towering mansion, expensive cars, and iron-fisted control of his empire. His only son, Ryan, lived under the spotlight of wealth. Spoiled by luxury, surrounded by friends who cared more about his father's money than his well-being, Ryan rarely saw the world outside his bubble. At the other end of this world lived Alina, a young maid who had recently migrated to the city. With no family to rely on, she worked long hours scrubbing floors and washing clothes just to afford food and shelter for her baby daughter. Every day was a struggle. Every night, she whispered promises to her child that one day, life would be better. Their worlds should never have crossed. But fate has a way of breaking down walls. On that fateful afternoon, Ryan had been speeding recklessly through the streets, his friends egging him on. In a split second of poor judgment, the sports car spun out of control. Ryan was thrown against the pavement and dragged under the weight of a halted truck. Crowds gathered instantly, murmuring, recording on their phones, but no one stepped forward. Everyone feared the worst: liability, risk, danger. And in that frozen silence, one figure emerged. Alina, holding her baby close, stepped through the crowd. Her hands trembled, but her eyes burned with determination. She had nothing, no wealth, no power. Yet in that moment, she had something no one else did: the courage to act. The scene was chaos. Ryan lay unconscious, half-trapped beneath the truck's undercarriage. His designer clothes were torn, and his breaths came shallow and weak. People gasped, whispered, argued, but stayed frozen, afraid of responsibility. Some muttered that they didn't want to get in trouble if things went wrong. Others simply kept recording, their phones capturing tragedy rather than preventing it. Alina felt her heart pounding as she shifted her baby to one arm. She could hear her daughter's soft whimpers, feel the tiny hand gripping her shoulder as though sensing the danger. For a second, Alina hesitated. She was just a maid, invisible to this city of wealth. Who was she to step forward when even strong men in the crowd stood back? But then she looked at the boy under the truck. His life was slipping away with each second, and though he was the son of a millionaire who would never have noticed her existence otherwise, in that moment, he was just a young man in desperate need. Alina pushed through the murmuring crowd. "Move back," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. She set her baby in the arms of an elderly woman nearby, ignoring the startled looks. Then she crouched down beside Ryan. The smell of fuel and burning rubber filled the air. Alina spotted blood pooling beneath him, his leg pinned awkwardly. With shaking hands, she tried to assess the situation. She had no medical training, no special skills. But she knew one thing: he had to breathe. She tilted his head back, clearing his airway. His chest rose faintly. "Help me lift this," she shouted to the men nearby. At first, silence. Eyes avoided hers. No one moved. It was as if their fear outweighed their humanity. So Alina did the unthinkable. She slid beneath the truck herself, ignoring the grit scraping her arms. She braced her shoulder and pushed against the twisted metal with everything she had. Pain shot through her, but she refused to stop. At last, one man broke from the paralysis of the crowd, then another. Together, they lifted just enough for Alina to drag Ryan free. His body was limp, but his pulse faintly throbbed under her trembling fingers. Alina began chest compressions, counting under her breath, her tears mixing with sweat. The crowd finally snapped awake, someone calling an ambulance, another fetching water. But none of it would have happened if Alina hadn't acted first. The sirens blared in the distance. But for Alina, the only sound that mattered was the weak gasp that escaped Ryan's lips. He was alive because a maid with nothing to lose had dared to do what no one else would. The ambulance screeched to a halt, and paramedics rushed to the scene. They took over, securing Ryan onto a stretcher, administering oxygen, and quickly transporting him inside. The crowd that had been so hesitant to help now buzzed with chatter. But all eyes followed Alina, clutching her baby once again. She stood silently, her chest heaving from exhaustion. She was smeared with dirt and sweat, her clothes torn, yet her eyes glistened with quiet strength. For her, it didn't matter if anyone noticed. She hadn't acted for recognition, only for the life of another human being. But recognition came. Unbeknownst to her, Victor Harrington, the millionaire himself, had been informed of the accident and arrived just as his son was being loaded into the ambulance. At first, he saw only chaos: the cameras, the murmurs, Then his gaze locked on. Alina. Witnesses spoke at once, telling him how nobody moved, how the maid with a baby in her arms had risked everything to save Ryan. For the first time in years, Victor was speechless. He approached Alina slowly, as though trying to process how a woman with so little could possess a courage greater than the entire crowd. As the ambulance sped away, Victor turned to Alina and asked only one question. Why did you risk your life for my son? Alina's answer was simple. With her baby in her arms, she said, because no one else would. Those words echoed louder than the sirens. In that moment, Victor realized something that wealth had blinded him to all his life, that compassion, courage, and humanity could never be bought. In the days that followed, the story made headlines. Videos of the accident spread across social media. Not because of the crash itself, but because of Alina, the poor maid who had saved a millionaire's son. Her bravery became a symbol, a reminder of the value of human life above status. Ryan survived. Though the road to recovery was long, when he finally woke in the hospital, the first face he saw was not his father's or his wealthy friends, but Alina's quietly sitting in the corner with her baby. Something in him shifted that day. Gratitude replaced entitlement. Humanity replaced arrogance. Victor Harrington, humbled by the incident, made a decision that shocked his world of privilege. He offered Alina not only financial support but a permanent role within his household, not as a maid, but as a trusted member of the family. Yet Alina, with dignity, declined anything that resembled charity. What she wanted was not wealth handed down, but opportunities to build a future for her child. So Victor went further. He established a foundation in her name, one that provided childcare, education, and emergency aid for working mothers across the city. Alina's single act of courage had sparked a movement that changed countless lives. As for the crowd that once stood frozen, many were left reflecting on their own choices. They had watched a life slip away because fear chained them in place. Alina had none of their resources, yet she had all the courage. In the end, her story carried a message that cut across class and status. True wealth is measured not by what we own, but by what we're willing to risk for others. And so, when people remembered the day a millionaire's son was saved, they didn't speak first of the accident, or the luxury car, or the mansion he came from. They spoke of the maid, with a baby in her arms, who reminded the world what it meant to be human.